Hello. This video is late. I intended to make it immediately after watching the episode. I intended to make it all day Saturday, well, the time that I was in on Saturday. But I didn't. Holby City. Week 4 of my viewing pleasure. And the final week. Yay! Call Me Michael is back. You gotta love that. Call Me Michael. One of the few people whose names I remember. Call Me Michael is being very cocky. He's being very full of himself. And I do like that. He's I like him when he's like that. I do. He raised a few chuckles. Fair play. We've got a conversation between annoying doctor and person whose job I can't figure out. But they have a conversation in which the phrase semicolon was used. And I don't know about you, but I've never had a conversation involving semicolons in which the phrase semicolon was said quite as many times as these two said semicolon in this conversation, which only vaguely involved semicolons, to be honest. It got to the point where semicolon as a phrase began to lose all meaning. It was ridiculous. I think the writer was showing off that he knew the name of a semicolon. So he put it in, or could be her, possibly, I don't know. But they put it in as many times as they could, semicolon, and had the character say semicolon as often as it was feasible to have the phrase semicolon in a conversation, just to point out, I'm a writer, and I know what a semicolon is. Well played, son. Well played. Or daughter. That doesn't work. Well played. Alan Jackson is now firmly ensconced back in his job, and as a consequence of this, sociopathic druggie doctor who stole the drugs because he's a druggie is having to leave because apparently, I don't know what anyone does in this program, but apparently he was just there as a temporary fill-in for Alan Jackson. So he has to leave, which of course rubs up his girlfriend the wrong way. As it would, you know, she blames Alan Jackson. You've only come back so he has to leave, or words to that effect. I wasn't really listening. So now he has to leave and she has to debate whether she's going to go with him. That's a big through line of the episode. Maybe I'll go with him. Well, maybe you should. She doesn't. Spoiler. The end result of that storyline is that he leaves. Yeah. She sort of calls him out on his drug theft and says, "Did you really steal the drugs?" "No, I didn't." "Well, I'm going to." "Okay then. I'll come with you. Give me your key to your locker and I'll collect all your stuff." It's a very, very subtle bit of detective work there. So she goes and looks in his locker and finds the drugs and calls him out on it. And he's like, "Oh, you know, you can't make me take a drug test. I'm leaving anyway." She says, "Well, off you go then." And he says, "You know, you weren't this high and mighty about the drugs when you were getting them from me." Ooh, sick burn. So yeah, druggy doctor is left. Druggy nurse is sticking around. But she's not happy. No, she's sad. She takes a little pill at the end of the episode and has a little cry. Never mind. I'm eating a sandwich. I said this on Twitter when I was watching the episode, and I was immediately pulled up on my ridiculous generalization when I said that all Down syndrome depictions in fiction are patronizing and just unforgivably twee. It always comes across as fucking twee and patronizing and, "Oh, look at the little Down syndrome person," over, you know. I know that's not how it's intended, but that's how it always comes across to me, and it winds me the fuck up. I mention this because in this episode of Holby City, there was a character with Down. There was two characters actually with Down syndrome, and they were going out, and the woman was pregnant. The woman's mother was really sort of overprotective and didn't know if he'd been going out, certainly didn't know if he'd been having sex, and was a wee bit judgmental about it when she found out. The bit that really wound me up about it was the way all the doctors and the nurses talked to a woman with Down syndrome. They would go off and they would have an argument saying, she's an adult, she certainly seems capable enough, there's no way we can argue that she isn't informed, she has to be allowed to make her own decisions, blah, blah, blah. And then they'd come back, and after having so eloquently argued in her favour, they would then come back and talk to her as if she was a 5-year-old. Winds me up. Getting back, because I forgot to mention it, to Alan Jackson and Druggy Nurse. They're treating together a patient who has all these chemical burns on his body. He's an undercover copper, actually, but don't tell anyone. And although his girlfriend, who's part of the organisation he's undercover to investigate, does find out, I'm sure it happened on screen, which she found out. I think Druggy Doctor was involved, actually, but I'd kind of zoned out, and I don't really know how it happened or what the conversation was, but his cover was blown. I think Druggy Doctor was involved. Beyond that, I couldn't be bothered to rewind, to be honest, to find out. I realised I'd missed something. It was all kicking off, and it kind of snapped me out of my daze, and I thought, hang on a minute. I realised I knew I'd missed something, but I couldn't be bothered to rewind. It just sort of, This, as I say, was my final episode of Holby, because the month is up. September is gone. We're one step closer to the hell that is Christmas, which means I won't be making any more videos. Hooray! I hear the two of you who are forcing yourselves to watch this cry. At some point down the line, I will do another month of watching a shit show for a month. I have no idea what show that will be. If you have any suggestions, feel free. Don't say EastEnders, because I will hunt you down like a dog and shoot you dead in the street. The end.